If you haven't been living under a rock for the last 60-some-odd years, then you know the story of Harper Lee's Pulitzer Prize-winning To Kill a Mockingbird, a pillar of American literature we all read in school. The principal attorney at the heart of the novel and its Oscar-winning film adaptation, Atticus Finch, was among the primary reasons I went to law school.
You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view.
But it was the story of a very different and more flawed Atticus Finch, featured in Harper Lee's early draft of Mockingbird Goes Set A Watchman, which attracted my next guest. Writer Casey Cep was reporting on Watchman's 2015 release in Lee's Alabama hometown when she discovered the author had once spent years working on a non-fiction account of another gripping legal case, the story of a local minister accused of killing 5 members of his family in the 70s to collect insurance policies he signed them up for. Cep spent the next few years looking into the case and Lee herself. She tells the story of both in her new book. It's called Furious Hours, Murder, Fraud, and the Last Trial of Harper Lee. Casey, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much.
Yes, thanks so much for
having me. It's fair to say it is really 2 books in one book. It's a story of the Reverend who, not convicted, but apparently killed 5 family members and collected insurance, and then this brilliant story about the woman who spent years of her life, Harper Lee, trying to write this book. That's a fair statement, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's highly accurate.
Okay,
Some people might even go farther and say there are a few more books tucked in there, you know, the history of life insurance, a little bit of religious history around the voodoo issues, because there was a lot of rumor and innuendo around that original case, and, you know, a little bit of true crime history, too. So I'll take 2. That seems like a low number.
I'll go with you. So, but can we reverse the order of how you introduce all the players? Because I am obsessed with Harper Lee,
sure,
as so much of America has. When you traveled to Alabama, before you went to Alabama, how much did you know about Harper Lee?
You know, I thought I knew a lot. It sounds like you and I have something in common, which To Kill a Mockingbird was a formative book for us as children. And, you know, I thought I had read a biography of her. I had read a lot of newspaper coverage of her life. And the truth about this Maxwell case business is it's only a page or 2 in the biography that had come out. And every so often it might be a paragraph or 2 in a profile of her. But it was really left out of the public record of her life. So I thought I knew it all. And then when I got down there, boy, did I learn a lot about what she was up to.
But you know, putting aside about her work in this Reverend Maxwell's Reverend Willie Maxwell, we'll get to in a couple of minutes, I obviously incorrectly assumed, because she didn't do press interviews, that she was this reclusive, hermit-type individual, but she was not at all. I mean, even though she was freaked out, she was overwhelmed by what came after Mockingbird, she wasn't a recluse at all, was she? No,
not at all. And I think hopefully that's one of the most satisfying parts of the book for folks who admire her work, is learning, in fact, that she was not reclusive. She was not, you know, a small-town person. She had this tremendously cosmopolitan life in New York. She had a lot of friends and family. You know, you could find her at the Frick, you could find her at the Met, you could find her at Elaine's. Nobody recognized her. You know, nobody was calling her Harper Lee or getting autographs, but she made her way around New York and maintained friendships in Alabama and was just a creature of the world and an intellect, I think, probably, you know, just a smarter and more worldly person than most people knew.
You know, when a writer like you spends so much time, in intimate time, with somebody like this, in a star figure. Last person I asked this kind of question to was Doris Kearns Goodwin after one of her Lincoln things, and said, do you feel like you actually know Lincoln? Not know about Lincoln, but know Lincoln. And she said yes, without missing a beat. Do you feel like you know Harper Lee?
Boy, I think I would say no without missing a beat. And
Why is that?
I even had the advantage, you know, Harper Lee only died in 2016, so I actually got to interview a lot of her friends and family and neighbors and, you know, people who interacted with her. But I just feel that, you know, like any good novelist, one of the most wonderful things she gives us is a sense that other human beings are entire universes unto themselves, and that we can, you know, live with a partner or get to know siblings or parents, and even the people closest to us have secrets and have interior lives that are just a little outside of our own. And
even her mysteries have mysteries.
Even
right?
her mysteries
That's her,
have
not
mysteries.
Me, by the way. So
yeah.
I want to get to Reverend Maxwell in a second, but you spent, she spent a ton of time working on this thing. Why did we never see a book?
Why did we never see a book is actually a very precise way of asking that question, because a lot of times people say to me, why didn't she write it? And of course, there's a very large number of people who think she wrote the whole thing and chose not to publish it. So this is a manuscript that has actually a very odd existential status, because some people think she wrote it, but the publisher turned it down, or she was worried about the Reverend's living accomplice who might menace her if she published it, or being sued by someone else in the book. But then there are a lot of people who know her, and I recount some of these struggles she had with writing and depression and drinking, who just say she found this great story at the wrong time in her life, and she struggled to put it together. And as energized as she was by the kind of social aspects of reporting, actually writing this book gave her a lot of trouble.
Let's go to Reverend Maxwell for a minute. I love, Lee wrote in a letter that he had a profound and abiding belief in insurance. What a fabulous line that is. So he buys policies, multiple policies in many cases, then he arguably kills the people on whom their policies, then he collects. Why was he never convicted?
Yeah, you know, I write in the book that this was kind of the Wild West of the life insurance industry, and a lot of the regulations and standards that we think of today, you know, if you were to take out a policy on your brother, for instance, you know, you'd have to have a social security number, he would have to undergo a medical examination, he would be informed that you were taking out a policy for which, you know, he was the insured and you were the beneficiary, and none of those standards existed at the time. So Reverend Maxwell could pull these, you know, tear sheets from magazines or newspapers, or you could walk into a bar and get a matchbook where you tore off the matchbook and filled it out, and for 10 cents or 25 cents or maybe even $1, you could get $1,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 policy, and you could do it with multiple companies without the others knowing, and you could do it without the insured ever finding out.
So I would argue that was enough circumstantial evidence, but then I read, I hope I get this right, that one of the witnesses against him in the first trial of killing his first wife flipped and then became his second wife.
Yeah.
And then what did he do? Buy 17 insurance policies on her? Did I get that? Do I remember
Yeah,
that
so
correctly?
exactly.
And then she's gone.
Yeah, so it's really a complicated story Harper Lee found, and the insurance is, you know, kind of the most straightforward of it all, because as you said earlier, there are approximately at least five, some would say 6 individuals close to the Reverend Maxwell whose suspicious and coincidental deaths allowed him to profit greatly.
And we don't have a lot of time, but the guy who ended up killing Maxwell, not only is he acquitted, even though there are hundreds of people there, the lawyer who had represented Maxwell for years ends up representing the guy who killed him. I mean, the whole story is, sir, were you intimidated writing the book that she intended to write?
Oh, gosh, I mean, absolutely. I spent the last 4 years wondering how I could do it if she hadn't.
You know, I've had the luxury, the privilege of spending time with people like you, whose first major public work is brilliant. I know you told me you don't read the reviews. I read the reviews. They were unbelievable, without exception. Harper Lee did a masterpiece and then could never do it again. When you're at your house late at night, I don't want you to take this in the wrong way, do you say to yourself, oh my God, everybody loves this. Can I do this again?
Faded, you know,
I'm
look,
serious. Do you have that fear or no? I hope not.
I think that, you know, one of the saddest parts of this book is actually the relationship Harper Lee had to writing, and she struggled with it, and it was a taxing vocation for her, and I love it, and I find it to be a joyful vocation, and I get up every day just grateful to be able to do it. So I think our relationship to writing is different enough, and as proud as I am of my book, you know, To Kill a Mockingbird is truly a once-in-a-generation book, and it touched your life and it touched mine, and I love this book and I'm proud of it, but I hope it just sends people back in the direction of Mockingbird, a true masterpiece.
I love this book too. It is great. Casey, it's a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me.
I really enjoyed reading it. Thank you so much. Book again is Furious Hours, Murder, Fraud, and the Last Trial of Harper Lee.